Hey, y'all, it's Trent on the Loos. And today, well, I've got a concern. Imagine that. 1985. Do you know what happened? Couple of things. Several things happened in the 80s that involve food production today. First of all, anybody who was farming in the 80s knows what happened with the farm crisis, interest rates, and all of those things. Jay Truitt is going to come along in a moment, and we're going to talk about all of that. But before we get to Jay, I just wanted to lay the groundwork because it really eats at me in my craw, actually. You know what? Let me not tell you what he said. Let's just go revisit Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack at a recent meeting in Omaha, Nebraska. I had the chance to ask him two questions.
So I have a question that involves credit. 40% of the farmer's debt is to farm credit. There's a real storm brewing in Alabama farm credit with one borrower who's now filed a lawsuit against President Biden for not his obligation to keep a service panel to oversee, make sure that farmers are treated fairly. Where do you stand on that, and why have we not had that oversight committee in place?
We have reached out to the White House to make sure that they understand the significance of this. Sometimes the vetting process takes a while because you have to make sure that you know the background of the individual you're nominating. But I'm sure the White House is focused on this, and I'm sure in the very near future we're going to get some attention to it.
If I could just have one follow-up to that. We had one individual who is ultimately working for USDA talk about his grandfather went out of business. And I've spent a lot of time talking to people who were born between 1910 and 1940. A lot of them went out of business, and it was because they could not service the debt that they had acquired. How are we as the United States going to service the debt that we're acquiring through all these programs that are on that whiteboard and everywhere else?
Well, the amount of federal debt to the overall economy is, in this administration, we've actually reduced the deficit by over $1 trillion. We're going to continue to focus on ways in which we can make sure that we're providing opportunities. I think the president would say that part of the strategy is to make sure that folks who have done quite well in this economy continue to pay their fair share of taxes. I think he believes, and I believe, and I think a lot of Americans believe, that billionaires who have made a tremendous amount of money in this economy probably need to pay a fair share. They need to pay a share of the cost of government equal to what probably the folks I'm talking to right now are paying in terms of percentage of their income. So that's why the president has proposed additional taxes on the wealthy, but not on those who are making less than $400,000 a year. That's one strategy. Another strategy is to make sure that we continue to grow the economy. This whole entire operation is designed to give us a chance for small and mid-sized producers to stay in business. I don't know if you're satisfied with this, but I'm not. Losing 544,000 farms in a lifetime seems like that's something we ought to be responsible to and we ought to be concerned about. Losing 155 million acres of farmland that's no longer in farmland ought to be something we're concerned about, and you have to have a strategy to address it. President Biden has a strategy, and we're going to make sure that we do everything we can to keep people on the farm.
Okay, first of all, Tom Vilsack has been the Secretary of Agriculture for 12 of the last 16 years. Only one person in the history of the United States has been a Secretary of Agriculture longer than Tom Vilsack, and that was back at the turn of the century in 1900. Okay, so it's a little hard for me to stomach him trying to blame anybody else for anything since 2008. Secondly, let's talk about the 150 plus million acres that he just mentioned is out of food production. I'm not happy with that either. But why is it out of food production? Okay, we can have a genuine discussion about the consolidation in agriculture, and I'm not happy about that. That too is forced by policies, but we'll talk about that in a minute. First, I'm going to talk about where is the land that he's whining about that is no longer in food production. Where is it? Well, 24 million acres is in CRP today. You can go online and find anything. Just type in Rewilding America, and you'll find sponsored programs conservation easements. And there's my real pet peeve, is that we have people like the USDA and Fish and Wildlife who have hijacked the term conservation. Conservation was never about preservation and putting it on a pedestal, never using it. Conservation was about utilizing it to the best ability possible so that we can then utilize the resource, but improve it for future generations. That's not what's happening here. January 27th, 2021, Joe Biden signs what we affectionately call 30 by 30. And the 30 by 30 provision, it clearly says that by 2030, 30% of the land and water will be returned to its natural state. What does that mean? That means you are rewilding America. You're no longer utilizing water for irrigation. You take irrigation out of the mix, and you do more than just cripple the removing food production, acres of land from food production. You take us back to where we were in 1900. We have the ability in this country to feed an ever-growing population way beyond 10 billion on the planet. But with the policies that are enacted at every step and turn, we see incentives going to people to remove. I am told that solar panels are projected to cover 75 million acres in the United States. That makes CRP acres out of production look like a walk in the park. So let's really break down why these acres are no longer being farmed. Because government came up with a payment to take them out of production. If you think about all of the government programs that have removed acres and land from food production, it's a travesty. It truly is a travesty. Here's the real issue. I can sit here all day and blame Tom Vilsack, or I can blame Joe Biden, or I can blame Donald Trump. I could find problems with each and every one of them dating back to when? Dating back to 1985, when Ronald Reagan was president and allowed all of this to happen. But we, the people, are the government. And we, the people, have been sitting by, allowing these things to happen. Finally, we have little wake-up calls like high pathogen avian influenza that's occurring within the beef cattle population. Dairy population. And if you're in the dairy business, you're in the beef business, let's not forget, dairy industry is responsible for 25%, about 23% of your overall beef supply. So when we have people now saying, hey, wait a minute, what's the government doing to our food? I'm here to tell you, it's nothing new. They've been doing it for quite some time. Finally, people are waking up asking questions. What do I do about it? Here's my answer, and my answer always. Get loud. Do not allow these individuals to continue to do this. Do not allow them to continue to empower the bureaucrats to bring about. And the biggest change in all of this is that our shipping and our agricultural sector is completely dependent upon the rivers of this nation for transporting our products, particularly if they're going to be exported. And who is now in charge of river transportation? It used to be the Army Corps of Engineers, and is a lack of ability that they had to get it done. Today, you have Fish and Wildlife controlling not only the waters for the transportation infrastructure, but also telling you where and how you can plant food to feed people. Put a black-footed ferret in your pasture and see what happens. You won't be feeding people with your grass. We have to shift the control back to we the people. Jay Truitt, Trent Loos, just ahead today. Trent on the loose.
Are you looking for something special or one of a kind? At Bassett Motors, we can help you find exactly what you want.
Come on in and experience how small town hospitality and personal service can make car buying a pleasure.
We know interest rates are important to you. We have multiple lenders to negotiate your lowest payment.
Visit us on Highway 281 in Carrington, North Dakota, and online at BassettMotors.com. Bassett Motors, where our customers send their friends.
Trent Loos here for my friend Greg Hager. Do you know why he has been named the Entertainer of the Year? It's because he writes his own stuff. It's because what he writes and performs and entertains will touch you in a way like very few songwriters can touch you. His country, his Christian roots come to life. Visit GregHager.com for tour dates, merchandise, and book the show yourself. Use the code GREG24 for a discount. GregHager.com.
In the heart of North Dakota lies a beautiful community to live, work, and play. Beulah is surrounded by nature and just minutes from Lake Sakakawea and all that it offers. The possibilities for fun and relaxation here are boundless. It's the perfect place to find a fulfilling career, epic adventures, and a welcoming community. Life here is legendary. Plan your visit today and see what you're missing.
At OLS Tubs, we focus on quality ingredients to create premium, low-consumption supplements that save producers time and money. Our customers see increased profits through better conception rates, heavier winning weights, and less time and money spent on doctoring herds. OLS formulas focus on highly bioavailable trace minerals and vitamins, as well as key ingredients to improve immune response, colostrum quality, and feed conversion. Our exclusive formula propels your livestock to their full genetic potential. This is why we confidently say OLS Tubs are simply the best.
Folks, when it comes to crop protection, you need equipment and technology you can count on. The Apache sprayer accomplishes all of that, but you need something else. A service counter and a group of people that'll help you when you need it. Simpson Farm Enterprises at simpsonfarm.com and High Plains Apache from Mandan. They have the service, they have the equipment. All they need is your confidence. Online, simpsonfarm.com or highplainsapache.com. Welcome back, y'all. Trent on the loose. As I mentioned, let's just plant some seeds here with Jay Truitt, and then we'll come back for the long go.
But listen, though, I mean, let's just be honest about the, let's just be honest about the fact that we just can't seem to stop asking government to fix problems when there's just no evidence that they ever do.
Zero evidence.
Yeah.
So I'm going to set this up, and then I got 2 minutes, just so you know, Jay. A friend of mine in Nebraska gave me a long story that I'm going to shorten, and I can shorten it and still be fairly accurate. But I believe this time frame occurred in the early 90s. He and a couple of farmer families went to Bolivia, and I think that's the right country. Doesn't matter the country. This story doesn't alter. And they went to Bolivia, and they went to some farms like farmers do. When I go to Australia, I go to ranches or stations. And he wasn't there long, and then he started thanking the U.S. farmer, my friend from Nebraska, for the CRP program.
Yeah.
He said, "You're thanking me for CRP. Why?" Well, you put $6 on our soybeans. And ended up, he walked through what an acre of land was bringing before the CRP program in the United States and what it was bringing now. And it is increased to the tune of $6 per bushel. And so that was attributed to the fact that we were putting farmland in CRP instead of farming it, which allowed other countries in the world to grow their footprint of the food that they produce. All right, there you have the seeds have been planted. Unlike the rodeo where you go the long go to try to qualify for the short go. We've taken the short go. Now we're coming back with more Trent on the Loose to really talk about CRP after this.
Stop out to our facility, Highway 22 South. Let us build a truck for you.
Hello and welcome to the MHA Interpretive Center. It's the perfect stop along the Lewis and Clark Trail and the cultural hub of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation. Nestled along the shores of Lake Sakakawea in Newtown, North Dakota, 1 mile west of the Four Bears Casino. You can enjoy amphitheater performances, art exhibitions, and educational workshops utilizing our living cultural center. Enjoy some coffee, browse our gift shop, and learn about the original people of this land. Learn more at mhanation.com/interpretive center.
Base Fluke Trailers of Dickinson is a family-owned dealer with expert staff that know their products front to back. We stock over 150 units of all types and can custom order a trailer with the unique features and capabilities you require for brands you can trust. Our experienced service team is the reason we're also the best place to have your trailer customized or repaired. Count on Base Fluke Trailers of Dickinson to keep you hauling.
People get sick for two reasons and two reasons only. Your body's missing something that it needs, or it's exposed to something that it doesn't need. So if you supplement what the body's missing, the body fixes itself. If you remove from the body toxins that are interfering with the body's doing what it's normally designed to do, then the body heals itself. It's really that simple.
NO2U, that's nitric oxide, NO, number 2, letter U.com, and you put Trent as coupon code, you don't pay any shipping.
D.C. Congressman Kelly Armstrong running a dirty negative campaign.
Your ads are quite negative when it comes to Tammy Miller. Why?
Well, I'm going to play the game.
The decision to go negative.
You're the first one to throw a punch.
We're going to keep doing it.
Desperate and dishonest.
You cited an artificial intelligence website promoting fake news.
I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong.
D.C. politician Kelly Armstrong. Fake news, false attacks. A negative campaign with no place in North Dakota.
Welcome back, Trent on the Loos. Jay Truitt. We're going to get back to this and let's get into the CRP statement. But let's just talk about CRP, because the whole issue in the beginning was it has to qualify as highly erodible land that should have never been farmed. I could put $15,000 an acre farmland in the CRP program today if I really wanted to. What's your take on this, Jay?
No, let's go. So let's go back to what was going on. So the early 1980s were some of the driest regions in the Midwest, right? Those are some of the driest years that a lot of people had in their crop history. We were coming off the heels and still experiencing some double-digit inflation. Bankruptcies were at a peak. Foreclosures were at a peak. We were losing operators right and left. And so the government's solution was not to try to come up with something new. They took they called the Conservation Reserve Program was nothing more than the land bank reinvented that they had back in the 40s. And so two things happened on my family operation, and that resulted in my dad and I sitting on the tailgate of the pickup one day. And he said, "Hey, listen, somebody's going to have to go fix this. And I can't, so it has to be you." And he promptly went out and bought me a new blue jacket and sent me on a trip to DC. And really, it was the beginning of my political career. I did some other things as a part of that, but really it was always about trying to figure out how to straighten the system in Washington. And I did go and just lobbied on the CRP and the dairy buyout, which that buyout crushed our operation because we were feeding slaughter cows at that point, cull cows, and turn them into hamburger. And they literally gutted us for months at a time. And so listen, if you go back to the original idea was that we're going to take the most erodible land, right? And that we're going to do this. And we came up with all these terms, HEL factors, T factors, soil categorization schemes. And that's when a lot of us that weren't really farmers, and I was a rancher, not a farmer, when we actually learned that there's multiple horizons in soil, and we panicked over what was happening in the Mississippi and how muddy it was, as if it hadn't been muddy since it started flowing, right? And we have all these, we start having all these conversations, and then somehow or another, we just don't utilize, and we required every government program to actually tie to that, right? If you didn't know your a farmer could quote his T factor on soil in that day as fast as anything faster than he could probably tell you how much money he actually had in the bank. And yet today it's not even, it doesn't even come up. It's not even in the register. And they go, oh, well, that's
Right.
because we use minimum till and we use other things, right? Okay. Well, if you're in Texas, you just experienced the 2 out of the last 3 years have been the driest in history. They go all the way back to the 80s and maybe before to find a year that was drier than what they've just experienced. And nobody's talking about T factors, right? They talk about a little bit about wind erosion, but you talk about wind erosion in West Texas every day, right? When the sand blows and hits you in the face, you talk about wind erosion no matter what. But I, it was a joke. It was nothing more than literally a scheme to actually, the whole world, what the U.S. was dominating the world to such an extent that some of the do-gooder types of folks in Washington, D.C. that think they're being altruistic and helping the rest of the world decided to make one of these moves that would allow some other countries to take up the gap in space. And ending stocks didn't really change over time. They changed on maybe a 1 year basis or partially for a couple of years, but over time, ending stocks, meaning capitalism, still drives overall world supplies to where world supplies need to be. The question is, where are you going to grow it? Are you going to grow wheat in Kansas, or are you going to grow it to the point that you tried to make in Australia or someplace else on planet Earth, whether it be South America or anywhere else? And we drove a bunch of that acreage out of the United States. Now we're competing against it. And the same government policies. Listen, I'm not even going to blame government, because a bunch of farmers were in town supporting this stuff back then. And we didn't learn a lesson, because we just keep coming back, asking them to engage more and more and more in the system, right? Instead of less in the system, we ask them to engage more in the system. And so, I don't know what to do.
So when did Brazil become a soybean powerhouse? Was that during the same period of time?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Brazil went from being a rookie in the soybean business. It grew a lot of acres, but they didn't do it very well, to growing a whole bunch more acres and learning how to do it really well, starting in mid 1980s.
Jay, I knew 5 people when I lived in Illinois. 5 people that I never thought about it, but they probably signed up CRP acres, and they went to Brazil. They didn't move, but they bought
absolutely.
And had farming interest in Brazil.
No,
and so it was the U.S. farmer ingenuity that taught Brazil how to be a soybean powerhouse against us, thanks to the thanks to the federal government.
Yeah, I had members of my own family that went to Argentina and started farming operations, turned over virgin sod in the Paraná region of Argentina, and turned it into truly competitive production zones.
That's a parallel to the story that I was telling you about Bolivia. It was $40 an acre, and it ended up increasing to the tune of what equivalent of 40 bushel per acre plus $6 per bushel.
Yeah, right.
Went to 300 an acre.
Right. And so we sit down, and again, we keep having this. I know it's the wrong analogy, but I just don't have a better analogy. But it's literally like a drug addict that knows that they know that the drug that they're taking is bad for them, but they somehow that drug draws them to go back to the dealer and ask for more and ask for more and ask for more. And we're so the Farm Bill basically on Capitol Hill, right? Here's one of the interesting things. People in
Before you go to the
agriculture,
Farm Bill on Capitol Hill, Hank has the perfect saying for this. It's like buying an alcoholic a liquor store and thinking he'll get tired of drinking.
yeah, no, yeah, a little bit, right? It is exactly right. And somehow or another, he's going to run out. You know, he'll run out when he runs out of. No, but he will. It'll run out. He will run out eventually when he runs out of money, and that becomes then the power that the government has back over us. And they took a short term. They took a short term situation regarding CRP, and like all the cards came together. It was a crippling effect that was taking place in agriculture. Anyone can admit that something dramatically had to happen. Interest rates were the base started in the low double digits and went from there up, right? I mean, people were going broke at lightning speed if they had any debt. Okay, right? So the government is going to bail us out from a problem that really they kind of created through their foreign policy and the economic activities that they had taken that were a mistake on the energy side and on the banking side and in the capital financing and spending side. And now they're fixing that problem, which then becomes another problem further down the road. When we increase food prices on finished food products, we have to actually increase nutrition spending for the people that can't afford it. And then we have to actually increase their social welfare safety net and just see how this actually goes, right? And at some point, the government has figured out how to actually get themselves involved in literally almost everybody's life in a controlling way. And we had just avoided it and been really independent. And I actually think that almost all of agriculture gave away our independence when we passed CRP.
I agree 100%.
And we in the next two farm bills, we instituted new pricing policies to try to secure a financial safety net. And we did that already with the banks that the government could control a certain number of acres, and we kept negotiating with them to add that they wanted to add more acres, and so we would negotiate to add more acres, and that stepped its way up. And we're still doing it. We're still doing, again, you made the point. You can take the best farmland in the state of Iowa or Illinois that anyone by any measure would say, hey, this is the perfect farmland. It's growing 300 bushels of corn. It'll grow 100 bushels of wheat and 100 bushels of soybeans in good conditions. And I bet if you work at it enough and you're willing to do just certain things, you can actually get that enrolled in CRP. And if you're
at 3 times the rate of what they were paying before,
at significantly higher rates than what we would have ever paid before, because now we want 30% of the land set aside, and they've got to make those conditions somewhere. And we want 50% set aside by 2050. The case study of what just happened in Sri Lanka on rice producers is a case study that farmers and ranchers in the United States should actually look at. The government managing that broke them. Their biggest market was China. They lost that market. Now China's actually having to grow rice to replace them. And they did it all because they kept trying to spend to fix level after level after level, and eventually they realized that all they needed to do is just actually plant rice in the first place.
I am really going to spend more time putting together an accurate list of all the programs dating back to 1933 that have been about removing farmers and farmland from the farm scene. God, thank you, Jay Truitt. God bless the veterans and the farmers who feed. Hello, everyone. I'm Trent Loos. Welcome to another Live Across the Pond with my pontification partner, Kelly Seaton. Good afternoon, UK.
Good morning, USA. Actually, let me do that again. Let me be more Andrew. Good morning, USA. And good afternoon, UK.
Kelly, you are your own specimen of beauty. We don't want you to try to be like Andrew.
I didn't want anyone to miss him with him not being here today, so I had to give it some vivation, if that's even a word.
You ran him off?
I think he's seen the sunshine that we've got in the UK today and decided he's going to make the most of it and absorb some vitamin D, because we are very deficient in vitamin D in the UK at the moment.
So yesterday he told us about the continued rain and the disruption of the planting. I went and looked at all of that last night. It looks like it's to be a growing concern because they're already talking about up to 1/3 of the UK wheat crop cannot be planted.
Yeah, I was just reading an article about that before we came online. The Guardian, which is just a normal mainstream paper, maybe, I don't know, maybe a bit right or left wing, whichever way you want to look at it. They are talking about some serious concerns of food shortages in the UK and having to import food. Wheat is a big concern. We know potato farmers, which still have last year's potatoes in the ground, never mind thinking about planting the next season. We have nothing planted yet, which we're not that reliant because we have grass clays and herbal lays, but last year's maize ground, we are looking at it thinking we need to get something in there pretty soon.
Yeah, and what gets left out of the equation is that you're already very dependent upon other countries for food to begin with. If I remember correctly, 65% of the food you consume is grown in the UK. The rest is imported.
It's actually lower than that now. So one of the governments committed to not going lower than 60%, and we are below 60% self-sufficiency now. So yeah, it's a huge concern. And for us, because we have a lot of animal agriculture in the UK, especially in this area, the biggest teller for us is straw prices, because wheat is imported, but obviously straw very rarely is imported. So I had a message this week about wheat being at straw being at £200 a ton. So I don't know what the conversion on that is, but yeah, £200 a ton for straw at the moment up in Scotland.
Doesn't that just sound weird though? I mean, I understand $200 a ton, but 200 pounds per ton, it's like you got two weights of measure in there.
Yeah. I don't know the translation on dollars, sorry.
Yeah. It's like 2.2, I think. So, no, it's not 2.2. That's a different measurement. We'll have to have Luke look that up. But what would straw normally cost, Kelly?
Around we can get it about £100 a ton. So it's like doubled.
Double.
Yeah, already.
So I think I can make this statement and be fairly general instead of just regional to our area. All winter, the hay prices were practically double what they were according to normal, not what they've been recently, because they've been elevated for the last couple of years. But our hay prices now have relaxed, and it looks like planting conditions are somewhat normal. There's quite a few people planting already, which this is somewhat early. There's always people planting the first week of April, but I think we're progressing quite well, although I am convinced, and have been saying this all along, we're going to have doses of winter through 1st of May or later. So that's kind of our weather report here in the central USA.
Yeah. So a friend was on GB News this week talking about how so much of his land is underwater that he's not going to get planted. It's going to cost him hundreds of thousands of pounds in losses. And we do have a government scheme which is there to pay out for losses that you can't claim on the insurance. It's nothing. It's £25,000. It's not going to even scratch the surface. But he's not entitled to that because the list of rivers doesn't include the river that his farm is on that has flooded. So he can't get any support with that. No insurance, nothing.
So that article that I read was the same one you read. was talking about the reduction in the amount of planting, and then it did include that farmers can apply for a grant to help with this scenario. Where does that money come from?
Taxpayers' money.
But it comes, so you don't have, it does come like from a Ministry of Agriculture, or does it come directly from the UK General Fund, or how does that all get shuffled to where it needs to be?
I don't really know what they do. So we have a budget every Easter and autumn, and they just shuffle money around basically. They seem to magic money from somewhere, but it's basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. The money's not there. The country is in debt, much like America. The country is in debt. The money, it's just moving numbers ultimately, isn't it? But the thing that's quite irking about this is I spoke to somebody yesterday who is a pig farmer. And during the pig crisis, when, I don't know if you remember that. Would you remember that, Trent?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So during the pig crisis, the governments were actually paying supermarkets and hauliers and the likes massive amounts of money to increase their storage and that sort of thing, or loss of storage because they were storing more carcasses. And farmers got absolutely naff all. So it's a constant thing that we are seeing throughout all of policymakers, that the big boys are the ones that ultimately get rewarded for these crises. I think they're kind of man-made crisis a lot of the time, but it's the big boys that get rewarded for that, and it's the small farmers that suffer.
Yeah, what we refer to as when government gets involved, they pick winners, they pick losers. They never pick the losers as the underdog. It's always the people with the heaviest voice and the biggest ability to pull money away. And it's the same around the world. It doesn't matter where you're at. And that's certainly what we have happening here.
Yeah, it's a weird state of affairs, isn't it? 'Cause it's almost comforting to know it's not just this country, but it's also sad to know that this is going on throughout the world. But a lot of these companies are global markets anyway, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. So, Kelly, what I think we need to do is that I'm seeing a growing little roar about, and Sarah Hinton has done a great job digging up this research from a group of a think tank, so to speak, which I became aware of in about 2017. And today, one of their founders is talking about we must repurpose this land and pull it away from livestock feeding. And so they walk through the billions of acres around the world that is devoted to livestock feeding. And their words, return this to humanity. Like somehow livestock don't improve humanity. And what gets left out of the equation, and I'm sharing this as a time when we talk about reduced planting in the UK, I think we need to take advantage of this. When God gives us something that says you're going to have fewer acres planted to food production, we share with people that this is why the system is structured the way that it is. And don't forget, particularly when we talk about grazing animals do not graze land that is going to produce wheat or corn or cotton or anything else. It grazes land that's not suitable for growing crops. Those animals, sheep and cattle, graze land that's not suitable for growing crops for human consumption. And that's 74% of the world's land mass. So when livestock are contributing to the equation, they're improving the planet by consuming what otherwise would not be utilized, upcycle that useless cellulose material into the most nutrient-dense food substance on the planet. That's the message we got to send loud and clear in times like this.
Absolutely. And I did see some research, it's 20 that oh, my internet connection. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You paused for a moment, but we got you loud and clear.
There was some research done in 2019, but it's still just as relevant today, and people don't understand, which is grass would produce the same amount of methane if it were consumed as to if it is consumed. So to actually turn that into meat, milk, and other animal byproducts is the most environmentally friendly thing that we can do, because we're getting a byproduct from something that would already happen.
People don't think about that. The fact that grasses, when they die and decay, because grasses die, everything lives, everything dies, and death with a purpose gives full meaning to life. That's the moral of the story. And when everything dies, it emits Well, I don't even want to call them emissions anymore. It emits plant food to continue the cycle of life. And we somehow have these disruptors who come in here and try to tell us that we're doing something that's not natural. It's as natural as you can possibly get, the cycle of life.
So I posted about that research on my Twitter account, and somebody commented, "What about this? This is another option." And it was an estate, an estate in the UK is over 1,000 acres, generally speaking, that had rewilded 250 acres. So they were like rewilding it and grazing maybe longhorn cattle on it, something like that. And I just said to her, that estate has committed to rewilding something that is bigger than our entire farm. You can't produce a profit from that, never mind a living. And it's a lovely idea. It's a very romantic idea, but it's not realistic. You can't feed a planet on that. And I, for one, would not want to see anybody go hungry because people are...
We got Kelly a bit of a, we got to go to a break. Kelly, we got some audio issues with you. We will continue to talk about rewilding America and obviously rewilding the world when we get back with more Across the Pond. Kelly and Trent after this. Your dad has long told me that you have a desire to be an advocate for animal agriculture, and now you're actually doing it on a daily basis. Tell us what you're doing.
I was seeing all these posts that were kind of pro-animal activism, and there really wasn't a lot of content explaining what the farmers were doing. I created the Animal Advocate page on, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, just designated to pushing out that information from our point of view. I've interviewed quite a few industry professionals, so getting their information out there was really good.
Hello and welcome to the MHA Interpretive Center. It's the perfect stop along the Lewis and Clark Trail and the cultural hub of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation. Nestled along the shores of Lake Sagagawea in Newtown, North Dakota, 1 mile west of the Four Bears Casino. You can enjoy amphitheater performances, art exhibitions, and educational workshops utilizing our living cultural center. Enjoy some coffee, browse our gift shop, and learn about the original people of this land. Learn more at mhanation.com/interpretive center.
Trent Loos here for my friend Greg Hager. Do you know why he has been named the Entertainer of the Year? It's because he writes his own stuff. It's because what he writes and performs and entertains will touch you in a way like very few songwriters can touch you. His country, his Christian roots come to life. Visit greghager.com for tour dates, merchandise, and book the show yourself. Use the code GREG24 for a discount. greghager.com.
Stop out to our facility, Highway 22 South. Let us build a truck for you.
Base Fluke Trailers of Dickinson is a family-owned dealer with expert staff that know their products front to back. We stock over 150 units of all types and can custom order a trailer with the unique features and capabilities you require for brands you can trust. Our experienced service team is the reason we're also the best place to have your trailer customized or repaired. Count on Base Fluke Trailers of Dickinson to keep you hauling.
Are you looking for something special or one of a kind? At Bassett Motors, we can help you find exactly what you want.
Come on in and experience how small town hospitality and personal service can make car buying a pleasure.
We know interest rates are important to you. We have multiple lenders to negotiate your lowest payment.
Visit us on Highway 281 in Carrington, North Dakota, and online at BassettMotors.com. Bassett Motors, where our customers send their friends.
Folks, when it comes to crop protection, you need equipment and technology you can count on. The Apache sprayer accomplishes all of that, but you need something else. A service counter and a group of people that'll help you when you need it. Simpson Farm Enterprises at simpsonfarm.com and High Plains Apache from Mandan. They have the service, they have the equipment. All they need is your confidence. Online simpsonfarm.com or highplainsapache.com.
So see these cows here, Trent.
Welcome back, Trent Loos, Kelly Seaton joining us from the UK. I'm in Nebraska. Speaking of Nebraska, tomorrow evening, I'm honored to be with the Cherry County folks who are running for Cherry County seats, county government seats, school board, county commissioners. You can see right here, this begins at 6 o'clock, April 12th, Mid Plains Community College. That's in Valentine, Nebraska. Here's the good news, Kelly. You can keep track of what we're doing because I'm going to stream this particular event on my Twitter and my Rumble account. So in case you want to know what's happening in good old Cherry, this is God's cow country, by the way. Cherry County, #1 cow-calf county in the nation.
So when you say cow calf, do you mean like beef sucklers? Is that what we would call beef sucklers?
Yes, your beef sucklers.
So in the UK, I think this is a term that's used across dairy generally, but we would call cow calf like a cow calf dairy where they have the calf on the cow and milk the cow at the same time. Not very profitable, but some people are doing it.
Why would you do that?
To make people feel better about drinking dairy, I think.
That is the most asinine thing I've ever heard of, and I don't understand. I understand that there is a challenge in removing the calf from the cow, but the calf is given the proper nutrition or it cannot survive or live a healthy life. And so you substitute that. People, look at this. I mean, this is a great analogy. We've had this huge trend away from women breastfeeding, and yet the same women who choose not to breastfeed are probably the first one in line to say you should not be taking that calf from its mother at birth.
Absolutely. And not just breastfeeding, also taking your children away to put them in nursery. And it's so normalized in our society for somebody else to basically bring up your children in schools, nurseries, and the likes. Our calves actually drink cow's milk. We take it from the cow out of the pipe and feed them the right literage for their age. We don't feed a replacer. So I feel really quite happy about that. Also, the way we do it is we do take the calf off the cow straight away. I've seen other dairy farms where they leave the calf on. And for me personally, I think that causes more stress to both calf and cow, because they've created a bond. We've got Holsteins, they don't give a hoot about their calf. They want the food. So if you take the cow away from the calf in that order and do it quite quickly, then I'm happy that I am doing the right thing animal welfare wise.
Just as a curious note, if you had jerseys, would they care? Are they better mothers?
Probably not. We've got one jersey we'll experiment when she calves in.
Yeah. So the big thing that you have to make sure you accomplish in that scenario is getting the right colostrum, the right level of colostrum in that calf immediately. How do you accomplish that?
So we stomach tube the first feed, which is about 4 litres, and then the next feed I will bottle feed them. And generally speaking, they will drink that, no problem. However, if I do get a feisty calf and the first feed, I think actually they might drink this, I will bottle feed them that first feed rather than stomach tube it. But yeah, we generally speaking stomach tube the first feed.
We have had this for a long time. There was a challenge, and this is the biggest change in the dairy business in our country, Kelly. So dairymen would breed Holsteins to Holsteins. They would generate 50% of their calves would be bull calves, 50% are female calves. That's just kind of how it works by nature, right? And so the female calves, the little heifers, were maybe part of a pool that would then come back and be their replacements or whatever the case may be. And that male calf, that steer calf that's ultimately it's a bull that's steered, was like the great challenge. How do we capture value out of the steer calf because nobody wanted it? Well, that has changed drastically because of our low beef inventory prices. We're seeing that these calves at birth are worth up to $700 pure dairy. And if they're half beef, they're worth up to $1,000 right off of the cow. And so that whole has changed everything. And what led to that, and then I want you to weigh in on what you see happening there is the same way. What led to that is that we have had the advent of sexed semen, so that you can use the male always determines the species or the gender of the offspring. So you can use only female sired or male sired semen to generate what you want. And so what happened was they used sexed semen traits to get the females that they want, and the rest of the cows in the dairy herd, upwards of 60% now, are being bred to beef bulls just for the beef system. And it's causing a real quandary because at this point in time, we talk about any dairy expansion and the females are not in the pool to get it done because we've had so many people choosing sexed semen and only get a limited number of females. How does that compare to what you have happening on the ground in the UK?
Similar, however, I could only dream of those calf prices, to be honest. So if we put Charolais on ours for, so I think we're running at about 20% replacement rate. So we will use sex semen on about 20% plus a few more because we're pedigree. And I experienced this when I worked doing data collection in Wales. Pedigree breeders are another breed because they will give extra chances to their favorite cow, even though it's technically not profitable. Whereas there's the other style of farming would be more of a New Zealand grazing system. So they get 2 weeks of sex semen. Then after that, they get beef. Yeah, we will give ours 5-6 chances for sex semen just because it's a favorite. But yeah, we will breed about 20% sex and then the rest of beef. And we'll choose whether that's Charolais, Hereford, or Angus. We don't use sex beef. We just use conventional beef. And we use a little bit of conventional Holstein as well. But for our Charolais, and they're good calves. I mean, I told you about one that was about 60 kilos, was it? I think we're looking at about 300 pounds, and that's it, 42 days. So,
I did look up the conversion rate, by the way. It's $1.25. So 200 pounds per ton on straw, you'd have to add a quarter of that back. So you're talking upwards of $300 a ton for straw. And you use straw for bedding?
feed and bedding.
Feed it balance in your TMRs.
Yeah.
So I'm laughing because we have the same exact scenario, and I'm not going to tell you that I'm any different because as a livestock breeder, you develop those favorites that you like for one reason or another, and they do get extra chances, but you have to be very critical of all of these animals, particularly when you are breeding genetics that are going to be passed on from generation to generation. You need to use the most fertile animals possible, not make excuses for them. It's so interesting to hear you say that the same thing happens with the breeders in the UK.
Yeah, 100%. I think we always excuse the Holstein as well and say, oh, well, she's milking hard, so her fertility's probably dropped. If they're giving 60 litres, you can't always expect them to hold a calf. So, yeah, we do give them extra chances.
Well, the other pet peeve of mine, and I've just come around to this in the last 3 years, is that when we have animals that at a young age, maybe it's because of their sire, because of their dam, and it doesn't matter if it's a horse, a beef animal, dairy animal, or a pig, it's all, or a lamb, it's all the same thing. You have this particular line that you like, and that animal at some point in time in its life gets sick. And so what you're taught as a stockman is you treat that animal immediately, and the quicker you treat it, the quicker you avoid it being a chronic sickness and an issue. And it never dawned on me until COVID, Kelly, that if you have an animal that at some point in time, for whatever reason, gets sick, you should not propagate those genetics. You should always select the animals that never got sick. And so since that whole concept of 2020, I've made a concerted effort here in all of our species to only use sires that had, particularly because sires represent such a huge percentage of your production, only use sires that have never been sick in their life that we don't treat, because I think that they possess something that we need to pass on to the next generation in all of these livestock species.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't get it very often, but if we ever get a calf that has pneumonia, that calf will never do well later on. Like you'll struggle to get them in calf and they won't just fire up after they've calved and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's right not to breed from them. Interestingly enough, we milk 3 times a day, and we had a brief hiatus where we went back to twice a day, just with our night milking staff leaving and that sort of thing. They all went back to Poland. We had a real cell count problem. We were really scratching our heads saying, what on earth is going on? Put them back on 3 times a day, no problem. They're all back to a low cell count and happy and milking well.
That's vastly interesting. Why do you think that occurred?
They're not holding the milk as long. And of course, Holsteins are bred to milk. So if they're holding that milk in for extra hours, you're not flushing it out. So it's reabsorbing and not getting flushed away. Probably lying down in milk as well. So we use sand beds, which are antimicrobial. But if they are laying in a pool of milk, for example, then they are going to get infections in their udder. Maybe not clinical, but you will start to notice those cell count issues.
So you mentioned that you have a struggle with labor issues on the farm. How bad is that now?
Not bad at all. We've got a great team of staff. It just happened around Brexit, which I don't mind Brexit, but the Polish workers went back to Poland, so we lost a group of them, and it was hard to think about how we were going to replace them. But we're grand now. We've got students.
And I wanted to ask about the general labor pool, but we are out of time. Kelly Seaton, on behalf of Trent, Loos, and Kelly, and Andrew, wherever you are in the sphere, live across the pond, regaining control for the farmer. One bite at a time. We'll see you tomorrow. Red Shirt Friday.
Bye.
At OLS Tubs, we focus on quality ingredients to create premium, low-consumption supplements that save producers time and money. Our customers see increased profits through better conception rates, heavier winning weights, and less time and money spent on doctoring herds. OLS formulas focus on highly bioavailable trace minerals and vitamins, as well as key ingredients to improve immune response, colostrum quality, and feed conversion. Our exclusive formula propels your livestock to their full genetic potential. This is why we confidently say OLS Tubs are simply the best.
People get sick for 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. Your body's missing something that it needs, or it's exposed to something that it doesn't need. So if you supplement what the body's missing, the body fixes itself. If you remove from the body toxins that are interfering with the body's doing what it's normally designed to do, then the body heals itself. It's really that simple.
NO2U, that's nitric oxide, NO, number 2, letter U.com, and you put Trent as coupon code, you don't pay any shipping.
In the heart of North Dakota lies a beautiful community to live, work, and play. Beulah is surrounded by nature and just minutes from Lake Sakakawea and all that it offers. The possibilities for fun and relaxation here are boundless. It's the perfect place to find a fulfilling career, epic adventures, and a welcoming community. Life here is legendary. Plan your visit today and see what you're missing.
Open Range is going to be like a digital magazine, I call it. We're going to be looking at a variety of subjects from agriculture, energy, sports, art, politics, of course, and we will be talking about a lot of subjects, having a lot of guests on, and I'm going to have a variety of co-hosts. One of them is Memo Barreto, Gail Wetzel, Gene Grainer, Dustin Goverlau, and Daryl Lease. Welcome to Open Range, weeknights at 9 p.m. Central Time on Beck TV.